Hi, this is Nina Bawal from Cyber Lightbooks. Thank you for joining us in the second of our webinar series based on our Internet Independent program, where we're supporting children in cyber safety and digital well-being. Today, we're going to deep dive into understanding online security for young people. Internet Independent Learning Library is something that we have created to ensure that our children can be immersed in a world of learning that looks like their real world. We have often seen in classrooms, as we educate thousands of children globally, that children understand cyber safety at some academic level, but when it comes into the nuances of their real world, they're often unsure about the application. We have created something based on the cybersecurity philosophy of exercise in a box. It's very much like the fire drill at your school. If you practice it over and over again, if there was to be a fire, you would have some idea of what to do next and not be flaying in the wind. We wanted to be in the same position with our children. As online harm and online risk grows, we identified 6 key areas where our children were at risk and needed skills, strategies, and tools to ensure they could be independent in their thought process when they're online. Realistically, in the real world, parents and educators cannot be with our children all the time. It's just impossible to do. But what we can do is to give them the skill set to think through what they have to do online if any of the risks that we talk about happen. Each of the webinar series will deep dive into one of the situations, giving some solutions, tips, and some well-rounded knowledge of what our children should be aware of. Our program works from 7 to 17 years of age, so not all information is applicable at each age. But what we see is it as a building block. Every year, your child's knowledge and education should grow to allow you to be very confident when they're older that they have the skill sets to survive and hopefully avoid cybercrime and risk at the level it is today. So let's have a look at privacy and information and security. It's very important that we establish boundaries and gateways and security for our children, and they know how to set up their hardware and their software to be safe. This is the fundamentals of cybersecurity. Before we look at negative behaviors, we have to look at negative hygiene and how often our children are in settings where they are not put in a secure situation because we've not made the effort to go and put them in a secure situation. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. One of the things I talk to all kids about is to identify their cyberspace as if it was the cyber bedroom. The cyber bedroom is a space very much like your own bedroom, where only limited amount of people should be or be allowed to go. So for younger children, their cyber bedroom, we would say, who's allowed into your cyber bedroom? Is it your parents, an auntie, your siblings? It's a very limited amount of people. So when you're looking at your security and infrastructure of your cyber bedroom, it should be the same. Only people you trust and know in the real world should be allowed into your cyber world. So we need to set our settings up. We need to be really aware of where we are roaming and if we're safe from bad actors or bad behaviors online. Older children obviously are navigating slightly out of allowing the same people in their bedrooms as the cyber bedroom. Their cyber worlds expand and are bigger. But the same application applies. If you were in a room and you were going to make sure it was secure, what would you look at? What would you look forward to and see around you to make sure your infrastructure is keeping you secure? We need to be doing that in our cyber bedrooms as well. We're not in a world online where we have a police force, where we have teachers or educators looking out for us. Often children are alone in those situations. I'm resharing a slide from our first webinar because it's always important to start most of our conversations with the motivation. Now, online, there are people with positive motivations and negative motivations as well. There are people who want to speak to you or reach out to you for personal information, or maybe they want to, form an online relationship. Children should be able to question through what their motivations to where they are online. Back when we look at the cyber bedroom, when you are on the apps that you have identified, why are you there? What makes you go there over and over again? Get your children to write down the apps that they're on, what are their motivations of being on there, and then identify, are there people with negative motivations? One of the conversations we then envelope into is what hackers and bad actors are and what type of information they're after and why they may be on these platforms trying to get that information out of you. So what are the first things we can do for our children to keep them safe while they're online in terms of their infrastructure and their security? One of the things we first talk about is to make sure that we don't give out too much personal information about ourselves. When we're signing up new usernames, we're going up to new accounts, do people need to know who we really are in the real world? Or can we be using strong usernames? Can we be using avatars where we can mask and keep ourselves secure from the outside world and people who don't know us? One of the case in examples I give is if you have a Netflix account, are you allowed to use your real picture to identify your account away from your brother's account or your parents' account? Well, they are not, because Netflix has given an avatar, something that establishes who they are as a persona and not a person. Recommending this type of behavior across is incredibly important, that they create an avatar for games or front-facing or public-facing accounts. That's incredibly important that they do that. The other thing on top of that is a need for a strong and established password. I often go into classrooms and ask the class, do you know your parents' password? And their hands will fly up. This is a real show of negative digital hygiene that we have. We're so used to swapping, sharing passwords. And that's the first line of defense when it comes to our cyber bedrooms, that we control who can get into them and who can take things out of them. So I'm very, very clear to them, you shouldn't have your parents' passwords. You may have a family password that allows you to get into a key account because it makes life easier, like Netflix. But when it comes to family accounts and things like that, we've seen hackers and bad actors get into gaming apps and start to groom the children to get the knowledge of their parents' passwords. Is an easy way to get into big family accounts and to get cash. So it's important we establish why it's important, give examples of how it's really first line of defense to have these things established. The other thing our children need to critically think through is the fact that most apps, when you download them, will ask you, can I send you notifications? Can I have your camera? And can I know where you are? Again, we need to go back to that conversation about motivation. Now, does your gaming app need your camera? And does it need to know where you are? If children critically think through this, they will be like, okay, no, they don't. So what's the motivation behind that? Is it for you or is it for the technology company? If it's for the technology company, you don't need to say yes. Given children the understanding that everything they're asked online does not need to be just a yes or a quick click, that they can think it through and think, is this going to keep me safe? Is this a desired behavior online? I don't think I need to do that. Really gives them the idea that they can be in control of their digital world. For the same goes for talking through when it's a good idea to give your location as well. But some apps do need that. And if they can define the two separately, it's a really good place to be in. For example, if you have Grab or Uber or a taxi app in your location, clearly that app needs to know where you are or you're just not going to get picked up. A great game to play is to list the apps that need your location and need to know where your camera is, and those apps that are asking and don't need them at all, and discuss why they might be asking that if it's not something that's baked into the feature of the app. The other thing we must talk to our children about when it comes to security is managing what they are putting out there and how they are building themselves as a brand or a persona online. Are they giving away too much personal information? For the older children, you can give an example of why sharing is quite it can be really bad for them. I'll give you an example. If you have a 15-year-old child and they're putting out their school uniform, their address, even talking about their pet's name, they could be giving you the key security words that when they're 18, somebody can hack their credit card account. Bad actors, hackers have time and patience to wait for these things to happen. There's a lot of ways giving out personal information can be collated and created, and we need to think through what we're putting out there. Another up-to-date conversation you could be having with the older children as well is how something like ChatGPT will eventually be able to write letters that sound like us or feel like us. So with the right data points, with the right information, people could be establishing fake accounts pretending to be us if they can get the photos and the images out there as well at the same time. So we need children to understand why the leak of personal information could have negative consequences, so they can think through when they're doing their next challenge or their next influencer photos, etc. Is this in a safe space? Am I keeping myself safe? One of the things that's really important that children don't seem to have understood is they are in control of their settings as well. They can go into their settings and keep themselves in a defined and safe space. It's incredibly important that children tell the app the age they are. Let me give you an example back to the image of TikTok that I just showed you. If you tell TikTok, I am a 9-year-old child, it will treat you like a 9-year-old child. It will not show you adult content that could be worrying or disturbing. It will not allow adults to reach out to you or to see your content either. And so you are now in a safer area of TikTok. You can then ensure that nobody can comment. One of the great exercises we do is 1 negative comment and 10 positive comments. If a child has 10 positive comments and then 1 negative is given to them about their coloring or their piece of homework, which one do they remember? And to remember, the same applies in the comment section online. The negative comments sometimes are more hurtful and grating. And do we need them to exist? Can you lock up your online space so you know that you are safe from outside comment or outside danger? Is it worth having more people come on board and have criticism? So look at your settings, get the older children to know that they are in control of certain settings and keeping themselves safe. They can turn off the chat, they can turn off the map, they can turn off the data sharing. These are things they can do and stay safe. For younger children, they have ability to say every time they download an app, Mum, Dad, can you go into my settings and make sure that I am in my safe cyberspace and take control in that situation? Children, when they're looking at hardware and software security as well, should identify what clickbait is, something that is very engaging, making you want to click on it. And it could be a phishing email, a scam, or something that's trying to pull your personal information again. We see a lot of phishing and a lot of clickbait happening in platforms like Roblox, or somebody trying to offer a free level up or free vouchers that will entice children in so that they can get further ahead in their entertainment or game they're playing. We need to establish if something looks too good to be true, what are the mechanisms or things we need to think through to identify if it's a phishing or a scam. And we need our children to have the toolbox to do that, because as they get older, cybercrime is growing in the areas of phishing and scams, and they are being exposed to it already. So if we can put them into their real world, establish where they see it now, and give them the tools to identify how to keep that safe, perfect place to be. The other points of digital hygiene we should all be adapting as educators, as parents, is making sure that we have the right infrastructure on our hardware. These are key things that we are often told time and time again, but we see aren't always done. So first of all, antivirus. Every machine should have an antivirus. Explaining this to a child, it's like giving a machine a vaccination from any viruses that may be created by bad actors and hackers. Hackers and bad actors are creating new problems every day. So sometimes your antivirus needs to be updated and be kept so it's working at all times, so your computer and your hardware is safe. Get them to imagine a world where their computers aren't working anymore because a virus has killed them off, and they will establish that they really do want to keep their antivirus safe. Their antivirus also has to go onto their phones as well to be fully vaccinated from any cyber viruses, crimes out there. The other thing to establish with children and ourselves is patching. That's when the annoying blip happens at the top of the screen when you turn it on and says, can I update your computer, or can I update your app? And we want to say later, later, later. What's happened there is the piece of technology, the technology company or the app has identified a bug and has released a fix. If you don't put that bandage on and fix it straight away, you are open to that virus. And so we need children to get into the habit of understanding, yeah, there is an update. Let's not ignore that. Let's patch it straight away and click yes, update, have the patience to do so, and keep their technology safe from any sort of cybercrime or any sort of bugs that are out there. The other thing children should remember to do is when they're opening key accounts, and as they get older, they will have more accounts that require authentication, is to switch on 2FA. 2FA is just a two-way process that makes sure that you have to do two things before the computer or the app believes it's you. For one of the traditional examples is when you want to take money out of a machine, you have to have the credit card, and then you have to have the PIN. With a lot of apps now and games, they will have an OTP that can be sent to your phone. So if you're doing anything on your Nintendo or your Xbox, it may ask for an OTP. This is incredibly important to those gamers as well, who've created amazing worlds of Minecraft, who have established a run on their favorite game and a great score. If somebody can get in there and wipe their worlds, it is very traumatizing. So having an OTP will keep their cyber bedrooms incredibly safe. We should all have them on our bank accounts, on our credit cards. There should always be two lines of defense to any of your accounts, and establishing that with children early will make sure they have that hygiene as they grow up. Lastly, one of the things that we will need our children to understand is how targeted advertising is working. Why do they always seem to see the same things? Why is the AI working in one direction? And how do cookies work? Cookies are a cyber world, which reminds me of Hansel and Gretel, when the cookie crumbs are there and follow you around the internet. When you go onto a website, it will ask you whether it can, you accept its cookies. What you're saying to that technology is, yes, you can follow me across the website, you can follow me across the internet and see where I'm going and what I'm doing. And then they can create a persona of you and start advertising and targeting to you. And this is how things often go viral. So children need to understand that they are in control of those cookies. They can turn them on and off, and they can establish their own cyberspace and what is given or projected to them, and they are allowed to work on keeping themselves safe. Thank you very much for listening to our second series in our webinar series. We will be uploading our third one very soon. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions or need more knowledge. Lovely to speak to you all. Thank you.